correspondence, whose 9th volume appeared in 2021. At the same time, I am also the last biographer to interview anyone who knew Tom when The Waste Land was first published, and over several decades I have gained from conversations with his surviving godchildren and others who remember him in England and America from the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. No one who met Valerie Eliot, the poet's widow, who died in 2012, will forget how she spoke of him as Tom. In biography, as in poetry and in life, naming is important. The poet of Prufrock and Macavity knew that well. Like its predecessor, this book presents a close-grained, intimate portrait of a man who can still seem to some, as he seemed to Siegfried Sassoon in 1922, intellectually aloof, and a specimen of cold-storaged humanity. That is why, throughout, I call him Tom. Being on first-name terms need not encourage listeners to share all of the subject's attitudes, passions, or prejudices. In a book which takes him from his time as an exhausted bank employee during the emotional turmoil of his early 30s, then through his years as a middle-aged firewatcher in bombed wartime London, to the personal surprises of his eminent old age, I tried to present Tom Eliot's life and work without undue moralizing, letting listeners reach their own conclusions. Inevitably, in selecting details, I am making a particularly individual portrait that tries to delineate how his powerfully resonant, superbly calibrated poetry is linked to the trials of his emotional, intellectual, and spiritual life. Other biographers will choose differently. My aim is not to neaten his life or reduce it to one expository template, but to let it emerge in its sometimes complex, contradictory messiness. There is a temptation to which the poet, his widow, and some biographers have been prone, to describe that life as if it followed a teleological pattern and possessed one stable meaning. This book seeks to reveal the life as it was lived, not as it may have been shaped in retrospect. While conscious that a number of listeners may want a biographical explanation, whether psychological, religious, sexual, or socio-political, I have tried to stay true to my belief that a human life is too rich and subtle to be explained away through one neat interpretive matrix. Rightly, the subject of Eliot after The Waste Land matters most to the world as a poet. The following chapters concentrate particularly on the part of his life during which he wrote poetry, though they address also his work as playwright, publisher, editor, and Christian public intellectual. Not least, I try to show ways in which, however refractedly, the poetry sprang from the poet's sometimes tormented life, from his 1915 marriage to Vivien, sometimes spelled Vivien Haigh-Wood, and from his surroundings. I will suggest, too, how this non-combatant produced the greatest English-language poetry of the Second World War. Telling this story requires intense selectivity, or the material would become overwhelming. In its annotated form, the Poems of T.S. Eliot runs to nearly 2,000 pages. His complete prose comprises about 7,000 pages. Including The Rock, his 6 full-length plays await a fully annotated edition. The ongoing publication of his letters in print and online already extends well beyond 10,000 pages, and is perhaps less than half complete. The daunting voluminousness of these writings and activities explains in part why the present book maintains a close focus on the man who generated them, rather than attempting a panoramic